The settlement was quiet, built on soil rich enough to grow food without machines, where neighbors trusted each other, and where danger was supposed to be far away. A man had chosen this place to raise his children, far from the noise of war and the cold steel of military orders. He had fought his battles long ago, in deserts and jungles, in cities where every shadow hid a rifle. He had earned the right to lay down his arms, to teach his son how to fish and his daughter how to ride the old tractor, to let callous hands grow soft in the work of farming instead of fighting. He was a man of few words and fewer explanations. He rose before dawn, inspected the fences, and ate breakfast with his family in a small kitchen warmed by the smell of real food. He taught his children discipline in quiet ways, stacking firewood straight, cleaning tools until they gleamed, learning to pay attention to details most people missed. They laughed together often. His wife teased him for still polishing his boots, even though no sergeant barked orders over his shoulder. His children thought their father just liked things neat. They did not know how many lessons he was still teaching, how many instincts he could not silence. Some settlers whispered that the man had once worn the uniform of the United States Marines, that he had medals locked away somewhere, medals he never displayed. Those who had fought beside Marines in the past remembered a certain look in their eyes, an expression not of anger but of focus, the way they calculated every threat and never let their guard down completely. But the children saw none of that. They only knew a father who knelt in the dirt to help them plant seeds, who pretended not to notice when they hid behind the barn to scare him. Weeks passed without event, until traders began telling strange stories of convoys that never arrived and cargo ships that went silent between starports. The settlement council worried about pirates. The man only frowned. He walked the perimeter of his fields twice instead of once, scanning the ground, studying the sky at night when others slept. He found tracks near the irrigation ditch, marks too heavy for human boots and too precise to belong to scavengers. When he told the council, they waved it away. Pirates did not come this far, they said. What threat could reach a simple farming world with nothing worth stealing? He did not argue. He simply went home and checked a rifle he had not fired in years. He began carrying a sidearm while feeding the livestock. His children thought it was a game when he told them to lock doors, to answer no knock, to run to the cellar at the first sign of trouble. His wife recognized the edge in his voice, but said nothing. She had seen that look once before, years ago, when uniformed men came to deliver orders sealed in plastic. The night of the raid came without warning. The stars burned bright above the fields. The wind carried no hint of danger. He was returning late from helping a neighbor repair a tractor when he saw the glow. Wrong color, wrong place. He ran. The hum of an engine too smooth to be human cut through the night air. By the time he reached his house, the door hung open and the world was silent. There was no shouting, no footsteps, only the low hiss of something burning. Inside lay ruin, scorched walls and overturned furniture. His children were gone. His wife was gone. He found them outside, not taken, not missing, gone. They had not been kidnapped for ransom. They had been murdered outright, killed as if they were nothing. He knelt in the dirt until sunrise, motionless. Not a sound escaped him. When neighbors came running, they found no tears, no wild rage, only a man whose face had turned to stone. They tried to comfort him, tried to call for help, tried to suggest the council negotiate or plead for justice. He only nodded once, as if he had heard, and sent them away. That day, he dug 3 graves alone, lowering his family into ground with hands that did not shake. No words, no prayers, only a promise written in silence. After the funeral, officials urged retreat to the main colony hub, where military patrols might offer safety. He declined. He walked through the ruined house, gathering fragments, studying every shell casing, every scorch mark, every trace of residue. He recognized the design of the weapon burns, the alloy dusted along the window frame. Not human, not pirates, alien, efficient, a strike team, not raiders. They had not come to steal. They had come to send a message. But they had sent it to the wrong man. The old instincts returned easily. He moved with precision neighbors had never seen, dismantling his old barn to access a sealed cache hidden under the floorboards. Inside lay the tools of a Marine who had walked battlefields where few humans survived. They were scarred, scratched, and deadly just like the man who carried them. He cleaned each weapon slowly, not with anger but with discipline. He inventoried ammunition. He sharpened knives until they whispered against the whetstone. When others spoke of leaving, he asked them simple questions. Had they seen the ship? Did they know its markings? What did they hear in the night? Piece by piece, a picture formed. The attackers were not ghosts. They were flesh and blood, with engines that left trails and armor that left fragments. He traced them to a sector chart no colonist had reason to visit. The man sold his crops, gave away his livestock, and shuttered the farmhouse. In the kitchen, he left 3 objects on the table: a photograph of his family, a single cartridge polished to a mirror finish, and a slip of paper with 4 words written in a steady hand. This is not over. Neighbors whispered about his calmness, how unnatural it seemed. But those who had ever served in uniform recognized it. This was not calm. This was cold, the kind of cold that came before a storm. He made his way to distant ports, traveling light, blending with traders and miners. He asked quiet questions. He paid in cash. He learned which ships had passed through, which crews bragged of easy kills, which alien mercenaries had spoken too freely in a bar. The pieces aligned with brutal clarity. They were not an invading army, only a squad working under contract, confident that no human out here would dare strike back. They were wrong. The man who had once fought under a flag now fought under no flag at all. He owed no orders to anyone, no loyalty but to the promise he had made while standing over 3 graves. The galaxy would not know his name. It would not know his face. But it would learn that when human children are murdered, the fathers of those children are not reasonable, not predictable, and not afraid. He purchased equipment without drawing attention: field rations, climbing gear, explosives in the guise of mining charges. He bartered for an old starship, battered but reliable, and spent days reworking its systems by hand, bypassing safeties, tuning engines until they roared like living beasts. What others called obsolete, he called familiar. He needed no sleek alien technology. He trusted his own skills more than anything made by strangers. The man who once lived by the rhythms of dawn and harvest now lived by the discipline of war. The farmer was gone. In his place stood what he had always been under the surface: a marine. Each movement became deliberate, efficient, stripped of hesitation. In spaceports where smugglers traded lives as easily as credits, he spoke little but listened to everything. Every scrap of intelligence was measured, sorted, stored in a mind trained to track threats and patterns. He found names of fringe sectors where unknown ships passed without transponders. He memorized rumors of mercenary crews boasting in alien taverns about easy kills and frightened colonists. He pieced together fuel routes, landing pads, and shadow markets where raiders refueled far from the eyes of any authority. There was no anger in his voice, no quiver in his hands. This was reconnaissance, the first rule of any hunt. On every stop he refined his tools. Weapons that had slept for years were stripped down and rebuilt. Metal parts were polished, springs replaced, circuits soldered with a steady hand. A battered rifle was recalibrated to fire hotter and straighter than factory settings allowed. Ammunition was hand-loaded with care, each round seated perfectly, each casing inspected for flaws. Knives were honed until they glided through air as if through water. The ship he had bought, ugly, slow, and unremarkable to the untrained eye, was modified piece by piece until it could outrun patrol craft and vanish off scanners at will. In crowded ports he walked unnoticed, just another drifter. But when no one was watching, he drilled endlessly. Push-ups, pull-ups, combat rolls on steel decks. He timed how fast he could draw, how quickly he could reload in total darkness, how long he could hold his breath while swimming through coolant tanks or vacuum suit training chambers. The farmer's muscles hardened into corded wire, his lungs rebuilt their stamina, and his mind shed the softness of peaceful years. Every hour was spent preparing for one purpose: to close with and destroy the enemy. He never spoke of vengeance. He never called it justice. There were no speeches, no written odes. There was only the mission. The aliens who had slaughtered his children were not ghosts. They had landing zones, command chains, and weaknesses. They bled, and he would find them. First came surveillance. On a dusty mining world, He shadowed a group of off-duty mercenaries, three of the species whose energy weapons had scarred his farmhouse. They laughed in a language not meant for human ears, boasting of how easy it was to terrify settlers, how soft humans became when their young were threatened. He marked their faces, recorded their ship's IDs silently with his visor. He followed without being seen, watching how they moved, how they trusted no one but still carried themselves with arrogant sloppiness. He didn't strike yet. A single dead crew would reveal too little. He wanted the network. He wanted to know who had sent them, who paid them, where they reported. So he tailed them for days across two systems, slipping unseen between docking bays, tapping into cargo records, paying off stevedores and shady dealers who owed no loyalty to anyone. Alien tech impressed outsiders, but it lacked something human tools excelled at: improvisation. A portable sensor welded from scavenged parts read their ship's power signature more clearly than expensive scanners sold on legitimate markets. When he finally attacked, it was not rage but calculation. A lonely stretch of asteroid belt provided cover. He disabled their engines with precision shot, boarded in silence, and ended 3 lives of the same steady hands that had once taught his children to plant seeds. Not a word was spoken. Not a shot was wasted. He took their navigation data, their mission logs, and he encrypted orders from whoever had sent them to his world. Then he vented the ship into space, leaving nothing but drifting metal. The trail led deeper into lawless sectors. He discovered drop points where credits were exchanged for raids, where alien contractors competed for jobs marked by cold bureaucracy. Among the coded listings was one standing order: strike at human colonies, disrupt expansion, show no mercy. It wasn't random cruelty. Someone wanted humanity kept small and afraid. The man learned their names, ranks, and supply routes. He sabotaged refueling stations by planting charges in hidden compartments. Alien crews awoke to find their ships dead in orbit, power drained, life support failing, and no one alive to explain why. He took only what he needed: weapons, codes, maps. He left no survivors. But at each site, he carved a single message into metal bulkheads, always in English: for my children. The word spread faster than the authorities could suppress them. Raiders whispered that a ghost hunted them, that humans who lost families turned into something more dangerous than soldiers. Some dismissed it as myth. Others tightened their defenses. Too late to matter. With every kill, his intelligence picture sharpened. He no longer wandered blindly. He chose targets with precision. A depot supplying mercenaries exploded in silence after he slipped in with false ID, planting devices disguised as cargo seals. A weapons broker who sold plasma rifles for raids vanished between systems, his ship gutted by controlled charges. An alien captain boasting of harvested humans found his bridge flooded with gas, crew asphyxiated before anyone could raise an alarm. Yet he never lingered, never gloated. He struck, collected data, vanished. Patterns emerged. At the top of the chain stood a faction growing wealthy from human fear, dismissing the losses of hired guns as trivial. They still believed it was a rogue pirate gang or scattered vigilantes. They did not believe one man could wage a war alone. Their arrogance was his camouflage. Still, the hunt took its toll. The man slept in snatches, ate cold rations, and kept moving. Old wounds ached in zero gravity, but he ignored them. The memory of 3 graves drove him further than pain ever could. He calibrated his ship's engines by hand, even when they blistered his fingers, rewired weapons while bruises bled under his armor. He spoke to no one. Companions would only slow him down or die in his shadow. On a forgotten moon, he ambushed another squad returning from a contract. This time he left one alive deliberately, a trembling alien with blood on his hands, a survivor who would crawl back to his masters babbling about the human who never missed, who struck from nowhere, who killed without hesitation or mercy. The fear spread faster than his bullets. Bounties went up. Patrols grew thicker. Mercenaries traveled in packs. And still he struck them down. Soon his name was whispered in languages across the rim. Not his real name. No one knew it. But a description, a title. Some called him the Ghost Marine. Others simply called him Father. In every tavern and dockyard, stories grew wilder. They said he could breathe vacuum. They said his rifle fired lightning. They said he couldn't be killed. He didn't care what they said. He only cared that the men who signed the orders were becoming afraid.